Hello and welcome back to Language Culture and Dr. Lou. And today's video is about epic slang from the 80s and 90s and why epic, because that was one of the words we used for cool back in the 80s. We had epic, stellar, bodacious, gnarly, and lots of other words. Basically, that all meant cool. So I call this slang epic. And by the way, this is the third video I've done about 20th century slangs, and I will have links to the first two in the description of this video. The first one is called Gen X slang was the bomb, and the second one was called 20th century slang was the cat's meow. And then, of course, now we got epic slang from the 80s and 90s. And so please do check them out if you enjoy reminiscing about slang that was really popular, used to be said a lot near the end of the 20th century, but we don't say it as much anymore. Please do, yeah, check those out. And so again, I'll put links to them in the description of this video, or you'll be able to find them right on my channel, and specifically in under the playlist about idioms, expressions, and sayings. Anyway, so let's get to it. And so the first piece of slang I want to pick for this collection is a piece of slang from the 90s called bling. And yeah, so we started using the word bling back in the 90s, and that was always really super flashy jewelry, and so flashy that it was worn as like a status symbol. It was to show off your status and all that. And so naturally, what came to mind for me was Public Enemy. So that's why Chuck D and Flavor Flav and all that. Um, and also very reminiscent of the time. So yeah, bling, that came from the 90s. And I think people still use it to a certain extent, and more or less for the same reason, really flashy jewelry. So there you go, bling. And so what else came from back then? Space Cadet. And we've got, and this one, yeah, it wasn't just from the 90s. It came a little before that, in still late 20th century. And a space cadet, simply put, that's, well, another way to say that is an airhead or a daydreamer. In French, we have an expression, we say that someone is in the clouds, and that's pretty much they're not with us because they're daydreaming. Their head is off elsewhere. So yeah, a space cadet. It's just an old way to say an airhead or a daydreamer. And of course, yeah, that's why the Star Trek related pictures up here. Anyway, so we got beyond Space Cadet. We've also got bounce. That's how we used to say, and some still do use this term to mean to leave. If someone's leaving, they're bouncing. If they say, "Oh, I'm going to bounce," that means they're getting ready to take off, ready to leave. And some actually say that this term comes from basketball, although I'm a little less familiar with the origins of this story, of this expression, but I definitely do know used to use it a lot in the 90s, and actually still do a little bit. Like I've said in the previous videos, I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm pretty old now. So a lot of the slang from the late 20th centuries ends up still being stuff that I say because I'm not, young enough to be cool and say the new slang. Like, but anyway, so that's bounce for you, just getting ready to leave, and then leaving is bouncing. And so there you go, that's to leave. And what were you doing? Hopefully before that, you were partying hardy. If you were leaving from a party, hopefully you got there and had a bunch of good fun before you bounced. And to party hardy is just to live it up, to have a good time, to have fun, to really party. So for a lot of people, that translates to drinking and drugging, of course, but there's other ways to do this, to dancing, having fun, listening to music, chatting with people, all that can be part of partying hardy. So that's party hardy. And I do like the one picture here. It's very, well, very reminiscent of 80's clothes. It's a picture from people partying back then, so why not? And so a drag, what was a drag? And this is not talking about drag as in dressing up as someone of the opposite gender of you or anything. This and the term drag was just meant to mean a disappointment, something that's possibly boring, possibly annoying, and it's a downer, right? It's a downer, it's a disappointment. That was a drag. And so, no offense to the drag queens or anything, but this had nothing to do with that use of the word drag. We just, and this too is something that I still say, oh, that's a drag. And another word for a downer from back then, if you're in the 90's and trying to say, oh, this is a big disappointment, this is annoying. We might have said, oh, that's a bummer, or even that's a bummer, dude. And when I think of the word bummer, I automatically think of Big Lebowski, right? And if you've never seen that movie from the late 90's, I highly recommend it. It's a good one. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, and John Goodman's character was especially interesting in that one too, but I won't go into it too much. Just recommending if you haven't seen, definitely check out Big Lebowski anyway. Because that movie itself is not a bummer, but some of the things that happen in it to the characters definitely are. Anyway, and so booyah. Do you remember that word? Booyah is something that we used to say, and I think some people still do. That was never a word I like to use a lot, so I wouldn't really pay attention. But booyah, this is when you're referencing that you've accomplished something that's, should be impressive to others. Like, hey, maybe to go with this picture, it's all like, oh, hey, we went skydiving this weekend. Booyah. Or you could even use it in other contexts, like, oh, good, I'm pretty sure I passed all my exams. Booyah. And so that's booyah. And I kind of like it because it's just fun to say, booyah, right? Anyway, so yeah, that word I do think is pretty fun. Anytime I can find a place to use it, which is rare because I rarely accomplish things all that impressive to other people, but it is fun to say, booyah. Anyway, and so what about if we go back to drag and bummer, not even was an expression that people used to use a lot to express disappointment and disapproval. If somebody's telling you, oh, this is how it's going to be from now on, blah, 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 and you hate that idea, you might have just said, oh, not even. And so, yeah, simply not even, that means I disapprove, I disagree entirely, not even. There you go. And I do love that little girl's look on her face right there. That's really good facial expression for not even. And you go, girl, right? A lot of people still say this. And the first thing that comes to mind when I think of you go, girl, of course, you go, girl is used to give encouragement or even congratulations um, for a woman doing something that's pretty impressive. That we're, we're being supportive when we say "you go, girl." And so naturally, I thought of RuPaul, who came to being in the very public eye in the early 90's with her song Supermodel. Remember that? And so to that I say you go girl. And somehow she is still around entertaining us all. So that's cool. And of course this also makes me think of how in the 90's all of a sudden in television and on the movies and all that, a theme of girl power started really emerging. Like one time, yeah, on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Willow said to Buffy, "Oh, we put the girl in girl," and that was that comes to mind. So yeah, so that's you go girl, or just being supportive and sometimes even congratulatory, generally of a woman for doing something well that we encourage, that we enjoy. And so there you go, you go girl. And beyond that, let's get to the first of two expressions I have with Kool-Aid in them. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. I think you might still know what that means. As far as I can tell, that expression is still around, although it certainly came from the late 20th century. And it's a pretty dark reference because if you're telling someone don't drink the Kool-Aid, that means, oh, don't get suckered into this. Don't just believe this and take it with blind faith without any proof of anything because it's all wrong. And so it's really dark because we're referencing things like the Johnstown Massacre and many other events where various cults uh, had their members unalive themselves by drinking poisonous Kool-Aid. It's a pretty, yeah, it's a pretty tragic thing. So when you're saying don't drink the Kool-Aid, yeah, it comes from a pretty damn dark place. And so sorry about making that so dark. And this next one is not so bad. It doesn't make you think so bad about Kool-Aid. And a lot of people used to say, stop dipping in my Kool-Aid. And what did that mean? It means get out of my business. That's what we tell somebody to get them to stay out of our business. Stop dipping in my Kool-Aid. Although we have some expressions we use a little more these days, like stay in your own lane and stuff like that. But that's basically what stop dipping in my Kool-Aid meant get out of my business or stay out of my business. And there you go. And so next up, something without a Kool-Aid reference is a scrub. And so a scrub is someone who is really bad at something, like they're no good at something. Sometimes because they're a newbie, they just got into their job and are just trying to figure out how to do it, but they're no good at it yet. You might be able to call them a scrub. Scrub is also the person like where if you're picking teams for a game of sports, that's the person you probably would not want on your team because they might be your weakest link after all. So that's a scrub. And so knowing that in a given context, a scrub is a good for nothing totally makes me understand why TLC wanted nothing to do with them, right? I don't want no scrub. Um, anyway, so beyond that, although good song, but still, uh, beyond the scrub, what do I got there? I remember that people used to say the word all right like that really super often. And yeah, and that's all it is. It's just a little contraction, just a little abbreviation of the word all right. So you're pretty much in agreement, expressing that, okay, yes, I understand, or even maybe yes, I agree, or maybe, just yes, all right, okay, fine, and there you go. So that's I. And another way to agree with somebody was to say preciso, right? It's just, another way of saying for sure, like as in, yes, you understood what they just said and you agree with it. And another word for this would just be definitely or absolutely, or again, for sure. So Sizzle, why do I got a picture of Snoop Dogg there? Because his face is what comes to mind when I think of this, and he did help popularize this expression a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. So I like to give credit where credit is due. And so I think this may be the last one in this little collection of 80s and 90s slang was the pad. Does anybody, well, I guess what I like to say about this is what we used to call your apartment or your house, your place of residence. This is what we used to call it before people started calling it a crib, right? Because the MTV show, MTV's Cribs, that actually first aired in the year 2000. So people had been using the word cribs for a very short time before that to express a person's place of residence where a person lived. And before that, we definitely used the word pad. Come to my pad, or that would be, oh, come over to my place, pretty much. So that was a pad. And as you can see from the pictures here, they take lots of different shapes and varieties because these things, well, this is where someone lives, so it's always individualized. So that was a pad at, at one point in time, and that I do believe chronologically was right before we started calling it a crib, right? So thank you so much for reminiscing with me about all these retro slang sayings from the 80s and 90s. And if you did enjoy this and get anything out of the video, please do give it a thumbs up. And please do also consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. I would really appreciate that so much. And so, yeah, until next time, yeah, I'll catch you around next time. Bye bye.